Hello there guys and welcome to another episode of Genuine Chit-Chat. This week I'm joined by my good friend Sean Lloyd. Now, I've known Sean for several years now, and he's Welsh, which you'll probably be able to tell as soon as he starts speaking, as well as the way I introduce him and whatnot. And as you can tell in this chat, it's much more of a casual conversation that goes on many different tangents and things. But I won't bore you with the details, but I'll give you a couple little bullet points. We speak about how we met, how Sean first got listening into podcasts and things, the kind of difference between village and city life, because I live in a city, he lives in a village. Some of the changes in lockdown that we've had to deal with and things like that. And Sean's thinking of starting a podcast, so we kind of speak about that a little bit more. We speak about social media because Sean is no longer on any social media at all. And then we also speak about the current social climate as well as Black Lives Matter and political correctness and that sort of jazz. So that's the kind of thing we speak about in this. This episode was a two-parter, so which means next week you'll get another edition with Sean. But I'm calling them separate episodes because I've done it in the past a couple times where next week's chat is so completely different. It changes gear and we talk about completely different things. So I just thought, if any new listeners to the show, you don't have to listen to either episode to understand the other one. Whereas with certain part ones and part twos, it's often a little bit different. But just want to clarify that before the chat gets started. And I will say there's going to be a quick promo for the 20th Century Geek podcast as well. That's a friend of the show, Scott Weatherly. He is amazing, and he was involved in the Star Wars collaboration I did with Chris and Dave of Comics in Motion, sort of late last year and early this year. He's going to be coming on the show. We've got it booked in a couple of weeks' time, so he'll be on the show soon as well. And then I'm probably going to go on his show at some point in the future too. But that's really it from me, guys. I really appreciate everyone listening. You know, make sure you subscribe, follow on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Genuine Chit-Chat. You can email me, all of those usual lovely things. And yeah, so after the promo, the chat will get started. And then once the chat with Sean has finished, then I'll be back right at the end to give information on what's coming up next week with the other part I'm speaking with Sean, as well as a few other things as well. So really hope you guys enjoy that, and yeah, speak to you at the end. And also just quickly, I want to apologise, listen back to that intro, you can hear kids screaming in the background. That's because I foolishly left the window open in this room when I recorded the intro, and of course, every child in the region decides to yell and scream and things. So apologies for that. I have now closed the window, so the outro will not have that. And for full clarity for any new listeners, the main show itself will not have any of those noises either. So sorry about that.
My name's Scott Weatherly, and I'm the host of 20th Century Geek, the podcast that looks at all aspects of geek and pop culture from the 20th century. Whether by myself or with an amazing guest, 20th Century Geek delivers full movie series retrospectives, classic comic reviews and discussions, interviews with those that created and contributed to 20th century pop culture, and everything else in between. 20th Century Geek is your one-stop shop for retro geek talk. Find us on iTunes, Spotify, and all other podcast catchers.
Welcome to Genuine Chit-Chat, where we have honest conversations with interesting people. And I'm your host, Mike Burton. Beginning, normally. Let's try. Try and be not weird for 5 seconds.
Be a presenter, Mike. Come on, be a host.
I'll try and be the best host I can be, Sean. I'll try. I'm trying my best, please. Anyway, I am here with... Well, actually, one more thing. Sean, do you want me to include your last name in the episode notes and stuff? If you'd rather I didn't, I could not.
Yeah, I don't really care, to be honest. Like, who's gonna... Yeah, it's fine.
Well, that's fine. No worries. Anyway, the only reason I was asking was because I am here today with Sean Lloyd. Hello, Sean. How are you doing?
Oh, no, don't put my second name in. I'm completely wrecked after you ended. I sorry, mate. Sorry.
Amazing.
Right, we'll never get this done. Right, sorry. Go on.
I'm keeping that. I'm not saying it again, mate. That's it. You're not an exonerated guest with a big podcast. You need to impress. You're a mate of mine, so we got what we're given. So, hello, Sean. How you doing?
Right. Yeah, not bad, mate. How's it going, mate?
Yeah, I mean, the weather's been a bit random. Obviously, we're doing the L word, lockdown. But yeah, it was really, really hot. And last week, me and Megan were like a bit stressed in certain ways. Well, not necessarily at each other, but we were both getting very irritable because we weren't sleeping properly and it was so fucking hot. We've got fans, But we're not like America where everyone has aircon because it's hot all the time. We get like a month or two of heat in the year, so it's not worth it.
Yeah.
So it's not very, very, very hot for me. What about you?
I completely feel you. As you can see, I know your listeners can't, but I live in my parents' attic. You know, a lot of people like to say, oh, they live in their parents' basement. I live in the attic, right? And it's like an oven up here. Like you can open the window and it doesn't do anything. I just sit here with a fan on me constantly, or I'm in bed and I'm lying there with a fan constantly.
That's amazing. It's one of those things, Sean, like how we met, like people can probably hear the degree of camaraderie because I'm going to keep in some other preamble I did at the start. How long have we known each other? Well, basically Alex Hart, did you listen to any of the podcasts with Alex on?
Yeah, I did. I listened to the ones where he was talking about his forest school, and I was listening to the ones where you were talking about films. To be honest, I'm not a massive film buff, so I didn't really listen to all of that. I was a bit bored, but
also you know Alex, so yeah. It's like that's what I say to people is like, because people don't know you've listened to quite a few of my my podcasts, which is. Thank you, of course, but it's not something that people I know I generally ask of them because I'm very talkative anyway and stuff like that. And it's like most of the time when people leave my presence, they don't want to then hear my voice for hours and hours more. Like that's generally not what they want.
Well, no, I find that when we do talk, we have interesting conversations, and it doesn't have to be like anything serious. Like we sit there talking about like shit comedy shows or plebs or some shit like that. You know what I mean? Like remember we came down for the weekend and the weather was horrible, and we spent like most of the day watching plebs.
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah, we watched that. I think either you came down to me or I went up to you, and yeah, we watched. It was a good couple of hours. We just sat there.
Yeah, the weather was horrible. I had a massive hangover. I remember because me and our other friend that came to stay with you. I won't mention names in case you don't want to. But yeah, we went to an engagement party, didn't we? So and we stayed at yours. So I had a massive hangover. The weather was terrible. There was nothing for us to do, so we just watched telly.
Well, that's it. Well, to be fair, it's like the way we know each other. The reason I brought up Alex was obviously we have a mutual friend, Alex Hart, who's been on the show a few times before. And he moved up to Wales because I've known him for probably about 5 years now, I think. Me and Alex met on Facebook, funnily enough, because a mutual friend of ours was asking for film recommendations, and we both end up posting basically the same films. We're posting like Wes Anderson movies and things, and then we got chatting on the post, and then one of us said to the other, "Should we move this to private messaging because we've wrote about 10 or 20 comments about movies?" And then he went to America for a while, 6 months or something, and then I saw him in person once before he went. He came to a barbecue I was having, and then he went and I kind of half forgot about him, and then he came back and then he contacted me. He was like, "Oh, do you want to hang out?" I was like, sure. And then for probably about a year or so, we were sort of inseparable. We'd see each other once or twice a week because we'd have those Odeon cards and things, go to the cinema all the time, and he showed me a lot of cool movies and things. And then obviously he told me he was moving to Wales, and I was like, well, that's cool. My dad and I and Mum used to go to Wales quite a lot, so I don't know Wales properly. Like I only used to go to Cardiff and things, but it's like I'm fine to travel to Wales to see you occasionally. And when he moved up to Wales, he initially moved with his girlfriend at the time, and then it didn't work out with them, and then he moved to basically where next door to you, and that's how you met him.
Yeah, what are the odds in it? He's got anywhere to go in Wales, like not just like anywhere in Swansea, and he moves next door to me, and we both like exactly the same things. We like, games, we like comics, we like all of that shit, and we just clicked instantly, like when we started talking. It was mad, and yeah, it lives next door, so it's awesome. Just, well, obviously not as much doing L word, but yeah, I mean, you just spend a lot of time just chilling, watching shit films and talking shit. Like.
Exactly, and obviously there's Alex and Alex and Beth. Obviously, I know about them as well. And I know you said he may not want to be mentioned, but I think he said about coming on the podcast at some point. So I'm going to say his name anyway. Jack. He's the other friend of. Was he a friend of yours? He was a friend of yours before you met Alex, wasn't it?
Yes.
Was it you, Beth, Jack?
Yes.
There was a girl I met as well, like whose name escapes me. You've been friends with for a while. Black hair. You have to say a name if you don't want to him.
I think I know who you're talking about. Yeah. So essentially, Bethan has got an older brother who's mine and Jack's age. And that's how I knew Bethan, because we lived close anyway. So we used to bother with each other when we were kids. Jack have been mates at school since too long. He'll probably tell you that as well. We've just known each other for way too long. Easily about 20 years. Easily.
Yeah.
So yeah, I knew him and I introduced Alex and Jack. and that was it. The squad.
The Welsh squad, even though Alex is the outsider.
Oh yeah, he had a rough induction when he came. Don't worry, there were several beatings. No, I'm joking, obviously.
I can imagine.
I'm joking.
I know what your Welsh lot are like. Just fill up like a sock with just Welsh cakes, and just they've been left out for like weeks, so they're bricks, smacking people with them.
Do you know what? The amount of episodes this podcast I've listened to, that's the first time I've heard you do casual racism. Well done.
I don't think it counts. Can British people be casually racist to Welsh? Does that? I don't think it can, because Welsh isn't even a proper race. Oh, you're just an off-brand of English.
All right,
I'm joking,
let's get off this now. No.
Well, it's one of those things where every time I say hello to you, I do my but I was going like that's my casual hello to you.
Yeah.
And in some ways that could be construed as racist, because I'm not going to do the impression. But if you were, say, from China, and I did a accent of a Chinese individual, that could be classified as very, very racist.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go down that road.
Oh yeah, don't.
But doing it for Welsh, no one has ever, well, to my knowledge, has ever said a white English person doing a Welsh accent is cultural appropriation or racism or anything like that.
No, it's not really. Let's be honest. Like, it's a different country, but we are essentially, at the heart of it, white British people. As much as that pains me to say, because I always turn around and like, oh yeah, Welsh, not British. I am very proud of where I come from, but yeah, do you know what I mean? I don't think it is racism, because we are essentially the same.
Yeah, it's a very weird grey area, but aside from getting into, I don't necessarily want to get into some sort of horrendous deep dive into racism where I can end up saying the wrong thing. with Welsh, I've got, that's dipping your toe in the water of kind of mockery. You go much deeper than that, and you've really got to commit, and that's not the road I'm going.
Yeah, no, definitely
I'm not dying on a hill. I'm not dying on the hill of racism on my podcast. Maybe that, if you don't like Star Wars, you're a shithead. I could maybe die on that hill, but I don't really believe that. But I brought up Star Wars, and we'll look back round to that in a bit. But one thing I want to ask you is, because obviously people listening, I've mentioned that you listen to my podcast, which I'm very thankful for. When did you first actually listen to podcasting and stuff like that? Like, when did you find out about it?
Right, this is going to make me sound like a massive hypocrite on a podcast. I actually hated podcasts up until very recently. I had no sort of interest in them, no clue. I couldn't really be bothered to listen to them. I wasn't really interested. But I started off with I watched Afterlife season 2, right? And I absolutely love Joe Wilkinson and David Earl. Do you know the guy who plays the
Joe Wilkinson's on? I know that Joe. I haven't seen Afterlife, but I know that Joe Wilkinson. He's on like 8 out of 10 Cats as Countdown, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I find his humour so funny. He's like really dry and it's really stupid. And the same with David Earl. Like I know you said you haven't seen Afterlife, but have you seen Derek?
I haven't seen. The only Gervais shows I've seen is The Office and Extras.
Okay. Well, there's a guy who plays this like alcoholic bloke in Derek, or Kev, or in Afterlife. There's a guy who keeps trying to get in the papers. Anybody who's seen it will know. And I just think that as comedians, they're both hilarious. So I just started listening to their podcast, Gossip Mongers. It's essentially an awful premise, because they're like encouraging their listeners to send in unsubstantiated gossip at the expense of whoever it is. But it's just so, I just found it hilarious. So I started listening to that. Now, obviously, I started getting into D&D, Dungeons and Dragons, quite a bit as well, much to the dismay of everyone else who knows me. But I started listening to D&D podcasts, not necessarily Critical Role, because everyone loves those. And I just thought, I tried listening to one, and it was like 30 minutes of shout-outs before they even started, and I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to listen to this. But this sounds terrible. It's called Dungeons and Daddies. It's not a BDSM podcast, right? It's about like forefathers who get thrust into the Forgotten Realms and try and find their sons, and it's really funny. So I started getting into podcasts through that, and then I'm always looking for a lot of podcasts, because during the L word, I'm going to refer to it as the L word the entire time, all right? During the L word, I've been off work for, well, as I said to you earlier, 3 months now. So I've literally spent the last 3 months listening to podcasts, finding new podcasts to listen to, or just playing World of Warcraft like a loser. Like I haven't been anywhere. Like, what can I do? Do you know what I mean?
Well, especially because you're in. Well, you're. If anyone knows anything about Wales, there's obviously Swansea. Generally, everyone knows about Swansea and Cardiff, and then the small village near-ish to Swansea that some people know of is Neath, and then you guys are like a village near Neath. Is that right? You have to say the exact place.
Yeah. Stop telling people where I live. Do you know what I mean? No. There's just outside Swansea, sort of in the middle of the valley. And, it's very quiet. Everyone knows each other. It's that sort of space, the typical, I don't know how to explain it, because if anybody from the village listens to this, I'll bounce your head before I know it. It's a very quiet place. Everyone knows each other. Everyone knows everything about each other. It's that sort of space, which I assume you're not very used to in Southampton.
No, exactly, because obviously when you guys, for people who don't know, are the ins and outs of our friendship, when the L word lockdown isn't occurring, I'd say probably every 2 or 3 months, me and Megan come up to you guys, or you and Alex and that lot. Some degree of people from Wales come down here, or some degree of me and other people come up to you guys, and we kind of hang out every couple of months. And obviously, when you guys came down to Southampton, you saw the sort of nightlife. It's only a 15-minute bus ride up over, or you could in theory walk. I've walked to town a couple of times where it takes about 40 minutes an hour, but it's a fairly pleasant walk. But you can get to the centre of Southampton, and there's 4 cinema complexes, there's 2 or 3 shopping malls, there's 5 different big streets in which to drink in, and each street is almost like a different genre. There's always like an old person street, and then there's middle age, and then there's young people who want to go clubbing, and then there's the alternative sort of things. And obviously, the Hobbit pub is one of the things. I think when you first came down here, I think I took.
Yes,
right?
I love that pub, right? And it's stupid because I've never seen Lord of the Rings. I have no interest in Lord of the Rings. I try to watch it and I fall asleep. So
You're a twat.
What?
You're a twat.
Yeah.
You said the same about Star Wars though, so that's the next thing you got to embark on.
Yeah, but it's a thing with Lord of the Rings. Like Star Wars was something that I never tried. I was just like, oh yeah, I don't like this crap. You know what I mean? But Lord of the Rings, I have tried to sit down and watch the films, and I'm just like, this is boring me to death. I can't do it. But I like the cocktails in that pub. that pub is awesome.
It is a lot of fun. But when you guys came, like Southampton as well, it's a really great place to live because there's loads of schools, colleges, 2 universities. There's a New Forest nearby. There's places like Bournemouth nearby as well, which are like beach towns and things. So there's so much. But yeah, I don't. Of all the places I've lived, I don't know the name of any neighbours of anyone that I don't think I've even properly met anyone I've lived with, lived next to. Like I'm currently in a flat block. I couldn't tell you a single person's name in it. The place I lived before this, in Bitton, didn't know any of the people's names in the little cul-de-sac I was in. So it's just not. There's no community in Southampton. There's like 230,000 people, which is just stupid. I mean, that's the same. The amount of people in Southampton is about the amount of people in the whole of Iceland.
Really?
So yeah, whereas your little village is like a couple thousand, I assume.
It's probably about 1,500 people.
Yeah.
There's a good community aspect which I like, and growing up, if you were misbehaving or something, I suppose it was a bit of a hindrance because everyone's like, oh yeah, I know your family, I'll be telling them. Do you know what I mean? But it is good in the end because everyone knows each other, everyone sort of respects each other, and it's a good community aspect. Get up behind a lot of charitable causes. We have like when this isn't occurring, there's a annual carnival, celebrate the village and stuff like that. It's really nice, But yeah, it's nothing like the city life.
Well, that's the thing, and when we're in lockdown as well, like most of us are stuck inside and we can't really do anything. But obviously, with you guys, a lot of the time it was Alex has got his own house, so where you guys, a lot of you are. Still living with your parents, trying to save up to travel or to move or to do whatever with, because we're all still fairly young still. It's with Alex, he's got his own place. That's the hub. So that's the place you all go to hang out. And his downstairs is just one big ass room, isn't it? And I was saying that when I lived at the house 2 houses ago in town, I had this it's actually where Alex first came to meet me, actually, when I had the barbecue. And the downstairs was just one fuck off room next to and connect to a conservatory. So I had parties where I'd have like 30, 40 people, and it wasn't even crowded. Like it was ridiculous. It was quite expensive. It was unnecessary, but it was so much fun to have all these parties and things. And my house, that I lived with 2 other mates of mine, became the kind of hub because it was just like, well, we were the first of a lot of our friends to move out. So it was a place you just go and drink and hang out, or get pestered by parents or being told you're too loud or anything like that. And Alex has got that. But obviously when your life becomes intricacies of social networking, as in not online social networks, like actual social events and things, where you've got carnivals and if you go down to the local pub, you guys jump in a car, go down to the forest and go for a wander. Little things that you can do, or just go round someone's house and play card games. You can't just go, fancy hanging with Alex for an hour or two. Because I know there's certain times I've been around Alex's for a weekend and you've been quite busy and working and stuff.
Yeah.
And you just pop around for a couple of hours, hang out for a chat, and then you can go home. Whereas in the lockdown, you can't do that. You have to stay in your own bubble. And the problem is that a lot of people's bubbles, you find the joy elsewhere. Not that where you live in is crap or anything, but you know what I mean? Like, especially when you live with your parents, that in lockdown, that can be massive pain in the ass.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think throughout this entire thing, the antisocial aspect has been the worst. Like, because I'm generally, I like to think of myself as a sort of social bloke. I go out, see my friends, go to the pub most weekends, or I'm at least doing something all the time. So to not be able to see people, that especially at the beginning was rough. But then obviously when things like Zoom started getting incorporated into it, when things like when you can go and see your friends outside and things like that, like, don't get me wrong, I know it's different restrictions between Wales and England, but, when you can go see your friends outside, when you can, start going for walks and things like that, that's the things that sort of made it a lot easier, I find. Especially, it's a far cry from the beginning, definitely, because at the beginning, no one was really sure what was going on, no one was really sure how bad it was going to be. Some people will attest, and I'd probably tend to agree with them, that it's been a lot worse than it could have been. But everyone was so afraid, and there was just a massive atmosphere of fear everywhere because no one knew what was going on. But I think now that and I wouldn't necessarily say it's calmed down or gone away, but because these restrictions are being lifted, some people would argue prematurely, or some people would say they're necessary. I'm not going to get into that argument, but because the restrictions being lifted, a lot of the troubles or a lot of the difficult parts of lockdown are a lot easier now. Definitely.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like Megan's mum, she lives by herself, and she has some hobbies of, what's the term, upcycling. You buy a ratty old chair and you paint it and replace the cushion and then it's a lovely new chair, that sort of thing. And she does photography and she's, I think, done a bit of painting, things like that. So she does have some hobbies, but a lot of her friends that she sees, she goes out and just goes for walks with, or goes to the pub just for a drink to catch up and things like that. And I'm very fortunate that me and Megan live together and I don't live by myself, because I can see that in the lockdown, being by yourself is probably the worst thing.
Absolutely.
I'm like you with a social butterfly, and before lockdown, I was having, every Friday I'd hang out with a group of people, normally some between 4 and 8, often a couple more. Not even going out drinking, just hanging out, kind of like what you guys with Alex do, play card games or whatever. And in the week, I'd probably have 1 or 2 people around a week, just after work or something, just to hang out for a couple of hours and watch TV or play video games, something like that. And where I've had to stop all of that, and obviously the last month it's been a lot more lenient, but where I haven't been able to do that, it has been a hit, because one thing me and Megan found was, obviously we love each other and we're great in each other's company and things, but especially in a flat, when you don't have a garden, when you're in basically the same room for about 16 hours a day, I wouldn't say you go mental. It's not as easy as you just go mental, but things just start to really, our mental health has become more apparent. Neither myself or Megan suffer with any diagnosable mental health issues such as depression, bipolar, that sort of thing. And I know a lot of people I know do, but me and Megan are lucky enough to not have been inflicted with things like that. But there's been days where we've both it's been described as almost having a cloud over your head, just because, I'm a massive hugger as well. I love meeting people and giving them a hug and chatting with people. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I could attest to that, yeah.
It's just one of those things where it takes a very strange toll, in a sense, if you know what I mean.
It does. As I say, I've been off now for 3 months, and the entire 3 months, apart from maybe the first month, so the last 2 months have just blended all into one. I don't know what day it is. I don't know what's going on half the time. I'm just here in my little bubble. But the beginning, it was really scary, because you had the media having a frenzy over all this. No one really knew what was going on. No one really knew anything about this at all. There was a point, my mother was working in the hospital and she tested positive for it. I'm pretty sure she passed it on to me at some point. We're fine, thank God. Do you know what I mean? There was nothing that needed to happen. But like at the beginning, when all this was going on, it was a scary time. It was. And one of the things that sort of irked me a little bit, which annoyed me a bit, I was coming back from America. I was in California when he announced the US-UK travel ban. So, not UK, US-Europe travel ban, and I thought that included UK as well. So I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to get home and be stuck in Los Angeles. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot worse places you can be stuck, but I didn't have any money. So I was just like, I'd spent all my money, I was on holiday. So I was like, I'm going to be stuck here. I can't get home. What's going on? Do you know what I mean? But, I was lucky. And then I came home. I got to Heathrow Airport. They weren't doing any checks. They just handed me a leaflet saying, if you've been to China or Iran, stay in the house for 2 weeks. I'd been to New York and I'd been to LA, which ended up being the two sort of hot spots in the US to start with. You know what I mean? I didn't get it from there, luckily. But, they didn't care. They just said, go. Get on your bus, go. Get on your bus to Swansea for 5 hours, just go.
It is a weird one, but if changing gear in a sense, because I feel like I'm going to go down a lockdown rabbit hole.
Of course.
In like recently, going back to sort of podcasts and things, I spoke about Jack slightly earlier, and you and Jack were talking about sort of starting up a podcast of some sense. Now, you can say as little as you want or as much as you want about the podcast. I know that you guys haven't fully figured out a name yet, or you're kind of talking. So I'm just kind of interested in what made you want to start a podcast and what's it vaguely about, as much as you'd like to share.
Well, there's not, I'll be honest with you, right? If there wasn't much to share, I'd probably be telling you all about it now. But you know us, we're very laid back, and this is very we say, do you want to do this? Very much yes men. Do you know what I mean? So I am trying to sort of push it. It is definitely something that's in the pipeline. We don't have a lot on it yet. We're trying to work out obviously names, logos. Essentially, it's just going to be us talking about important issues, because basically what we found, me and Jack, throughout this entire lockdown, we've kept each other company by Discord. You know, Discord sort of gaming software where you can talk and things. We've very much kept in touch through that, like every day, just talking about nothing in particular, just ending up having conversations. We found that it was quite fluid, like it came naturally, just having conversations, and it was interesting because we don't necessarily have the same viewpoints. Because let's be honest, no one wants to listen to someone going, "Oh yeah, I think this," and so I agree with that. There's no conversation in that, is there? So when we were finding that we were having these disagreements, not like nasty, you know, we never got like each other's faces or anything, but like when we found we were having these different viewpoints, we were like, this could be interesting. People might listen to it. If they don't, they don't. But it's something that we're thinking about, something that we're working on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the kind of boat with podcasting. It's one of those weird things where it's a lot easier, but also a lot harder than people think.
Oh yeah,
it's a really weird one, because it's like flicking on a microphone and chatting with someone. A lot of people have said to me, they're like, I don't know how you've managed to keep doing it for nearly 3 years. Like, how have you found stuff to talk about and blah, blah, blah. It's like the problem that gets me to stop doing it, which I haven't stopped doing it or anything, and I don't plan on, but I've never been like, oh man, I'm running out of conversations, I need to stop, because every human has conversations with everyone all the time. No one gets to 80 and says, you know what, I'm going to stop talking now because I've said all I can say. That doesn't... It'd be nice if someone was that humble, but, you know, it's definitely not going to be me, so let's face it.
Oh yeah, no, you're
I'm going to be talking probably after I'm fucking dead. But it's the thing that makes me at certain points just be like, oh, fuck, do I want to keep doing this? It's normally, I edit things and release them on Sundays. So I normally spend between 2 to 4 hours on a Sunday just editing the episode, putting it through, you know, XYZ, making sure it all sounds okay, writing, doing the write-up, doing the hashtags, doing the artwork. And there's certain things that I don't have to do. Like I release audio snippets online of 30 seconds to a minute of relatively each episode. I put that on Instagram and Facebook. And doing that, you know, I have to select the snippet, I have to clean it up, and then I have to put it through this software called Headliner that's really cool. And then it transcribes the audio, but it's not perfect. And a lot of the time, if someone has got a very strong accent or they speak quite fast or anything like that, then, or if there's background noise, it won't pick up everything they're saying. So you have to hand type it. But there's these little things which you don't have to do. Like, I don't have to release headliner snippets. A lot of podcasters don't. A lot of podcasters don't post on social media either barely at all, none at all. And social media posting is probably the thing I hate doing more than anything. It's so monotonous. But the problem is I know for a fact that if I don't, my numbers actively drop because there's a certain amount of people who return and subscribe and listen to most episodes. But I'm not at the level where I'm comfortable where I can just be like, my listener base will allow it to spread by word of mouth. It has to get up to the thousands and then it will organically grow itself a bit, but you have to get that base. And it's anyone in a band and anyone in any sort of creative outlet will always say, it's not the thing that I love doing that's the problem. It's not the playing music with your mates on stage. It's not drawing or painting or anything like that. No one says that's the problem. Everyone says the problem is when you either want to sell it or you want to promote your shows or if you want to get people to listen. It's just so wank. It's just so fucking boring. And I love my show, but I don't want to promote it loads. I just want to kind of release it and people go, this is cool, I'll listen. But that's how the world works.
I think where a lot of people go wrong with creative outlets and things like this is they see a lot of people succeeding on it and they think, oh, I'm going to turn this into a business straight away. This is going to be my main source of income. I like doing this. I could do this. And like Twitch streamers, right? A lot of them, like Twitch is brilliant. It's endless hours of entertainment and people build massive careers and really massive fan bases from it. But where people go wrong, they start Twitch streaming with the idea that they're going to get millions of subs, millions of followers straight away, or thousands, and they're going to be the most popular person on Twitch, and they're going to be able to quit their shitty job that they hate and just play games for a living. That's not how it goes. If you're going to start doing creative things like this, it needs to be as a hobby first and foremost. And if it gets good enough for you to monetize, fantastic, you made it. Do you know what I mean? But a lot of people go into these things thinking we're going to make the big time here. No, just do it. Just do it because you enjoy it first. And if something happens, fantastic, well done.
Well, that's exactly with me. It's like one of the things with me, and a lot of people have commented on it and saying, you know, oh, one of the things I love about your show is that you sound genuinely interested. You sound like you're really, and it's like I would cut off my left foot if tomorrow you said, look, cut off your left foot and you'll be as famous as Rogan. Like I don't want to be famous. I would just, if I could self-sustain on the podcast, I cut off my left foot, deal. But it's not that simple. And it's like, I don't do it so that I can become famous. I would fucking love it. But first and foremost for me is releasing episodes that I want to release. And one of the things I said before we got into lockdown, at the end of every podcast, obviously I do a little, this was coming up, blah, blah, blah stuff. And I was saying at lockdown, I was like, look, for the next few weeks or a couple of months, I'm only going to do podcasts of people that I already know. And it wasn't against anyone else. It was just that there's a few people, I did it with Tony, Max, Chris and Dave, a few people, there's about 5 or 6 episodes of it. Whereas people I've already had podcasts with, because it's not that with a new guest I don't enjoy. Obviously with you it's different because I've known you for ages. But it's like with certain guests you have to work at it. And that's part of the fun. So as you speak to someone like you mentioned John Vespasian, he was a really cool person. You just say one word to him and he'll go off for like 10-15 minutes. That was quite easy.
I loved listening to that. I'm a massive history buff. So I love that. Sorry, I didn't interrupt.
No. Always feel to interrupt. I'll go on for hours if people don't interrupt me. But with that, with him it was really easy. But there's other people I've had, I won't name because it's a bit rude. But I've had people on where you ask them a question and they give an answer, and that's really it. And you have to really work the conversation, and that comes part and parcel with it. And some of my best conversations have been conversations like that, where I've had to really work at it, but the information the other person's saying is great just because they're a bit shy, they're not as much of a conversationalist, things like that. But hosting does take energy. So I did it for a while and I was like, I just want to chat with people who I just care about, in the sense of I could just flick on the thing, just like with you, not really write anything down as notes, and a conversation could just happen. So I was always saying, like, I would love for it to get popular and famous and rich and all that sort of stuff, but I'm not going to be. But the social media side, annoyingly, is even if I said tomorrow I'm going to come off all social media, there's still like certain guests, like I've had it where certain guests have contacted me, and there's a couple of guests quite recently who've contacted me saying they want to come on the show, and it's amazing, and they come on and it's loads of fun because they've seen me on the Facebook groups, or they've seen me on Instagram, or they've searched somewhere, and because I've got enough followers they can find me. But if I never made social media, that becomes more difficult. And I know that you've got some opinions on social media as well, haven't you, Sean? Oh, Shawnee boy.
Oh, yes, I have. So, the last bastion of any presence I had on social media was Twitter. I loved Twitter. I was using Twitter all day, every day, spewing shit, spewing jokes, like thinking that I was the funniest guy ever. Like, I just didn't really care. And I had that Twitter account for 9 years, right? I did have all sorts. Like, I had Facebook. Can we just like collectively agree in 2020 to just put Facebook in the bin? Like no good comes of it. It's just literally people saying, I think this, and people go, "You're wrong, you're stupid, let's have a fight about it." Like, or like, Facebook's stupid. Instagram I hate as well, because it's just, and this is going to make me sound like such a miserable old man. It's going to make me sound like I'm like 70 in the body of how old am I? Like 20, yeah, I don't even know how old I am. 24. Do you know what I mean? It's like Instagram is just perfect people living perfect lives with perfect bodies and perfect houses, perfect food. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just exhausting to be bombarded with that all the time. And it's not real. None of it's real. And people are like, "Oh yeah, I need to be like that Instagram model." No, you don't. What they're posting on there is not real. That's not how they live their life, I promise you. And then Twitter. I was very much in a, what can I say? So I'm very politically minded. So over the years, I was like, just like following people I knew in real life. Do you know what I mean? And then as that sort of like, the more I was using the website, the more I was getting into the political side of it, which is the most toxic part of Twitter, let's be honest, because unfortunately politics is so tribal these days. It's you're either with us or against us. It's a mob mentality sort of thing, right? If you think anything in between, get off the fence, you're wrong. Do you know what I mean? And it's just stupid. And I was finding myself part of that. I was finding myself so radicalized on the political Twitter. And I was saying things, and I was like, "Oh my God, like, do I really think this? Like, surely you got to like take a step back, have a bit of dialogue, and get both sides and come to your own conclusion instead of just being like, yes, I agree with that person." I was just finding myself exhausted by it. So that Twitter account there for 9 years, I was just like, "No, it's going." And I deleted it about, I think on Saturday it'll be a month, and I feel a lot better for it. A lot better. There's literally no toxicity in my life whatsoever at the moment.
Except me, you cunt.
Like, it feels stupid to have a rant about social media on a social media platform such as a podcast, but it's not traditional social media. It's the sites that dominate everybody's lives.
I think it's more content media. I think like YouTube and podcasting and stuff is like a content media. There is a social element of podcasting. I mean, the weird one is Reddit. Is Reddit social media or is that content media? Because there's comments on there and stuff, like you can direct message people, which I suppose you can do on YouTube, but it's about the content, not about the people. I don't know. Do you use Reddit much?
Recently I have. When I deleted Twitter, I sort of replaced it with Reddit, but not. Good. I'm not a poster on Reddit.
Oh, no. I've only posted 4 things probably in my life.
So as I say, I got off Twitter mainly to get away from the political stuff. I decided to sort of bury my head in the sand. Because I was like, honestly, this is how much it was like invaded my life and affected. I wasn't sleeping because I was thinking about what these world leaders are doing, or do I mean it's so stupid. So I was just like, right, done with that. That's not happening anymore. So I got on Reddit. I don't follow anything political. I follow r/funny. And I think that's about it. Do you know what I mean? I don't look at it.
Really? I need to send you some subreddits, mate. I've got some amazing subreddits you're going to love. I've got one called Birds Aren't Real, and it's just a subreddit. Yeah, it's literally a subreddit, which is just people posting about how birds aren't real. It's a joke subreddit. It's a trolling subreddit. Yeah. But it's got like... It's got like I think it started because there was like this fake IKEA manual thing, which was like how to put together like a parrot, and it had like the separate parts to make the parrot, the head and the wings and the beak and stuff. And then I think from there it kind of spiraled, and then people now it changes every few months. They kind of like what the main thing is, but it's something like all birds are government drones. So every bird you see is actually just a drone made by the government and their cameras. And there's someone who was they recorded a video of them posting on Birds Aren't Real, and then the camera pans and there's 2 birds on their window ledge on the outside looking in and going, guys, they know. And it's just that sort of... there's like a bird who's got like an injured wing and it falls on the floor and it's like twitching a little bit. And someone got a little video of that and said, look, it's the drone is glitching out. It's things like that, but it's really dumb shit, but it's just brilliant. That's what Reddit is. It's funny with social media because, I mean, it's very good of you to say you were on there, you were thinking about it loads and you put yourself off. Like, the fact that you were thinking about stuff a lot while using it a lot doesn't make you stupid. You coming off it, recognizing that there was an issue there, that makes you intelligent in my eyes. Everyone gets problems with something,
Absolutely. And as I said, I was finding myself sort of like effectively, I don't I don't like to use the word radicalised because I was never of the mind that I was going to like start a revolution and start like, can anyone disagree with me or anything like that. I wasn't radicalised in that sense, but I was like sort of radicalised in this is my point of view. This is right. This is what everybody should believe. If you disagree with me, you're an evil person. You're wrong. I was getting to that sort of stage, it was just like I was thinking to myself, hang on a minute. Just look great for both sides. And it is a mob mentality, as I've probably said. I don't know how many times I've lost count. But like, the thing that sort of broke the sort of final straw for me was obviously, there's a lot of people protesting about the horrendous systematic racism that black people have had to endure for 300 years. Which is great. Their voices need to be heard, and this needs to be curbed out. Absolutely, I think anybody would agree on that. Any reasonable person would agree on that. But also, you got to look at it from the side of obviously these people were mass gathering as if this COVID-19 virus had gone away, and it was this, and which is obviously danger in itself.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're recording this sort of like a month, 5 weeks after all of this started. So obviously. I don't know the official figures at the moment because, as I said, I've started to bury my head in the sand a little bit. But basically, there's a tweet that said, if you think that the protests are going to be the main cause of the second wave, but people going to McDonald's, people going to the beach, people gathering are not, then you're the problem. I was like, well, no, all of it's a problem. All of it's going to help spread this virus. Do you know what I mean? And how am I the problem for saying all of it's wrong just because the one part of it is inconvenient for you? Like, I found myself like sort of, that you have to take a bit of a centrist point of view. And people will say, "Oh my God, you're racist. You're saying this." I'm not fucking racist. Fuck you. Do you know what I mean? It's so stupid.
It's the tribalism. It's one of the things where I try. Whenever I have political things on this podcast, I try and always have a balancing. I try not too heavily to get into specific things to do with politics. I more try and get like an overview of politics. I like hearing other people's opinions. But the problem is like the Black Lives Matter thing, the whole Black Lives Matter thing. I don't necessarily want to get into a big discussion about Black Lives Matter because, I'm a white guy who's 26 in England. Even if I had the best point on the whole planet to make, a lot of people, let's say half, would hear the point and go, "You're white, so it doesn't matter." Yeah,
exactly.
That in itself is its own problem, and I'm not saying that they don't have reason to believe that, because obviously I've not been the subject of police brutality or any mistreatment from the police due to the colour of my skin, because I'm white and I've only had 2 interactions with the police ever, so it's not really like that. But it's one of those things where like do you remember when on social media there was everyone's posting the black squares and stuff? I don't know if you saw about that.
Well, the social media blackout. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. And on Tuesdays, I often post something called T-shirt Tuesday, and it's just, I have quite a lot of T-shirts, so occasionally I'll just put a photo on it of myself and doing it. And I held off on that, and I was trying to work out, I was like, on that day, I was like, right, what could I do? And I ended up just not posting anything, because I thought I could post the black square, but then I was like, I don't really agree with the black square. Like, I'm not anything against it when I post the black square, but for my opinion, it's like, if you're just posting a black square and nothing else, that isn't helping. Mm-hmm. If you're posting your black square, but then saying in the description, my favourite black artist is, Hobson, and also my favourite black filmmaker is, Spike Lee, or do you know what I mean? If you're actually highlighting black individuals who you believe should be getting a spotlight in some way, I know that obviously bloody Hobson and Spike Lee aren't very small people, but you know what I mean? Like, people who are black creators, if you're giving them a light and you're saying, look at them on this day, that's great. If you're sharing loads of charities and things and saying, systematic racism is real because XYZ, check out this article that explains it, and also here's a place to donate money to help get some of these protesters out of prison who can't afford it. That I'm okay with all of that. I haven't got an issue with that. It's when you just there's so many people on my Instagram who are just posting black squares and nothing else and not saying anything. And it's like, are you actually on board with this? Or are you just posting because everyone else says you don't want to look like you're not? And I chose not to, because I didn't want to get in a dialogue with anyone, because I was like, I thought about posting stuff about lots of black content creators I know, but then I was like, I don't want to then... There's a podcaster I know, and I wrote name, and it's nothing against this person, but for the Blackout Tuesday, they said, I've gone through all of my podcasts, and I've found all of the people of colour I've spoken to, and I've taken bits out of the conversations with them, and I've put it together as one special black edition of my podcast. And that's fine. I haven't got a problem with someone doing that. But the problem is that some people could take that as trying too hard. And it's one of those things that even me saying this, I'm very hesitant to kind of see these things on the podcast. But even me saying that opinion to you of, are they trying too hard? I'm not saying they are. But the question has to be asked, is it better if every white person just shuts up for a day? Is it better if they all post black squares? Is it better if we all try and highlight some black individuals who are content creators who aren't getting enough things? Do you know what I mean? It's so complicated of an issue that I'd have to sit here and explain for 2 hours. For about 15 minutes, I'd have to explain my viewpoint. And then I'd have to spend the next hour and 45 minutes going back and explaining how I'm, trying to explain that I'm not racist because of this, or the reasoning and justification for that. And it becomes this big mess that can't really be explained in a tweet.
Yeah.
That's 240 characters. I can't post episode descriptions of my own fucking episodes of 240 without having to go through it and carefully change it.
Look, I think what you said at the beginning of your point there, you hit the nail right on the head. Like me and you, we are a pair of white, British, in our mid-20s. We have no clue, and we never will know what it's like to walk a mile in their shoes, right? Never. Like we shouldn't have an opinion on it, which is fair enough, right? But it's, as you said as well, it's such a complex issue. I don't have the answers. You probably don't have the answers. None of us have got the answers.
No, I definitely don't.
But I think even though the protests were a good show of solidarity with everybody, with the black community, which is fantastic. The Blackout Tuesday, exactly like you said, right? The Blackout Tuesday, a lot of people were following it just because it was a social media trend. They weren't behind the Black Lives Matter movement whatsoever. And don't get me wrong, that's not me gatekeeping, no,
of course.
That's not me trying to gatekeep, but a lot of people were just like putting black squares on their profiles and not signing petitions to get these people released, not donating to the Minnesota Freedom Fund and things like that, right? But as you said, obviously I don't want to talk about this too much, and I know you didn't either, but I just thought there was obviously we've gone off on a tangent from the social media thing. But as I said, it's such a complex issue. I don't have the answers. I just don't understand how it's so hard to treat other people like other human beings like human beings. Do you know what I mean? And that's my final word. Isn't it? We all whatever. We all share this planet. Do you know what I mean? Let's just be mates.
Yeah. It's annoying that there's a vocal minority that are cockwombles and they make it so complicated for everyone else. And it's one of those things where it's like, in my own podcast, I like this to be an honest, open space. People can talk about what they want. But I have held off on certain opinions of mine or certain viewpoints of mine in certain areas that are hot topics due to potential backlash. And I'm not like hiding. And if you ask me, if someone on a podcast asks me a direct question about one of these issues, then I would answer them honestly. But sometimes a thing can come up and I don't necessarily want to, because there's certain things like this is as close as I'm going to get to talking about some political. Okay. I want to clarify. I have got nothing against anyone who is Muslim. I want to clarify that. But in Catholicism and Christianity, there is a book called the Bible. And within that book, it says homosexuality is wrong. Okay. Well, the man should not sleep with another man. It gets interpreted with homosexuality is wrong. In the Quran, there is a passage that is incredibly similar, if not the same, that basically says homosexuality is wrong. It's paraphrasing because I don't know the exact wording. Both of these books have got a passage in that says homosexuality is wrong. I condemn anyone who says homosexuality is wrong. I do not condemn every Christian, I do not condemn every Catholic, and I do not condemn every Muslim. But even me, now I'm not going to go any further with that. I'm just pointing out the fact that the Quran and the Bible have both got things in which are against homosexuality, and in my view, that is not right, okay? But I'm not going to push any further with that, because even me highlighting that two religious doctrines have got the very, very similar things, and obviously they're both Abrahamic religions, they both have Jesus in, it's just one believes Jesus is the Messiah, and one believes that Jesus is more of a prophet, but not the prophet like Muhammad is. Do you know what I mean? It's all this big nuance. But they're both books that have got a line of text in there that is an issue and can be very dangerous. Now, even me stipulating that, immediately I will have to try and defend myself to say, I had to say to you, I've got nothing against Muslims. I wasn't even necessarily talking about Islam. I'm just pointing out the fact there's two books that have both got something in there that I don't really like. And it's just, if I went into full depth of my opinion on things through Christianity and Catholicism and things to do with Islam, due to at present, obviously there's a lot of Muslims in the world that are getting horrendously treated, not only in their own countries and things by other religious followers and things, but also in England, there's a big problem with immigrant hating and things like that, and people blaming Muslims for loads of issues that have got nothing to do with them. There's all this stuff, and because of all this weight, we have to then, as a white person who's not of colour, who isn't a downtrodden minority, we have to really be careful with what we say. Because, as I said, even people mention, if I could spend this whole podcast shitting on Catholics and Christians, no one would care. But if you then go against people who are Muslims, you can get into a lot of trouble for that sort of thing. And I don't want to go near that. My opinions on religion is as a whole of religion. But if I then did one podcast, exactly, and if I did a podcast, I'm against organised religion. I'm not against religious persons.
Mm-hmm.
I've got no problem with most people who are religious, because most of them are just nice people who want them to believe it. That's okay. But it's one of those things where certain topics are just far too hot to really get into unless you're prepared for the backlash. If I was like Joe Rogan and I was making millions of dollars off this podcast and I was basically self-employed, I could really go into depth about anything I want to go into without any issue. But because this podcast isn't my livelihood, and then if I say something on this podcast and someone goes, what? He said something bad about the Quran or Islam, therefore he's against Muslims, which I'm not. Therefore he's racist or bigoted or anything like that, even though obviously Muslims aren't race, but people still connect those dots. And it's like having to defend myself over something that I could potentially lose my job over, because I work for obviously a big corporation and they're very hot on that sort of thing. If anyone on social media accused me of being racist because of a podcast I've done, even that accusation is enough for me to potentially lose my job. And that alone that's why with the Black Lives Matter movement and a lot of other things, I've kind of specifically not said my piece or not gone into detail about that, because it's like, as you say, there's so much radical ideology on places, and people want to be either you're on the left and you're with us with everything 100%, or you're on the alt-right and you're a Nazi. And it's like, it's not that simple. It'd be nice if it was that simple, where you could just be either you're a really over-the-top progressive or you're a Nazi. But most people are in the middle. And you saying about you on Twitter and things is just kind of shows that on Twitter it's so polarizing in things. And it's just something that I didn't necessarily... certain subjects I don't always want to talk about, even though I want to be as honest as I can about a lot of different things. It's because of people having backlash. Me and the guys, some of my friends, we've had conversations in a group chat. There's about 10 of us. And there's been arguments that last like 2 or 3 hours because someone has said something and it got potentially read wrong or interpreted wrong or is what they meant. And then someone else says something back. And then and what happens is, because especially in messenger form, or even in this podcast format, if I say something or if I've said something in this podcast that someone's offended by, and then they quote it and put it on a website somewhere, I'm not there to defend it. If I have a conversation with them about it, I kind of can. See, a big rambly long point, but I'm just saying it's quite hard in a lot of ways.
Absolutely, and again, you've hit the nail on the head. There's such a tribal aspect to it now. It's basically, generally, a lot of my politics are very left wing. Generally,
same. Yeah.
So, I was finding myself in this left wing echo chamber where people were like saying, "Oh yeah, you're going to be on the wrong side of history if you disagree with our points." Do you know what I mean? People are going to, you're a racist, you're this, you're that, and it's just like people are quick to label you if you disagree with them, and it's just. I was finding a very toxic atmosphere I find it very toxic to my life, not because, I was having these views, not because I wasn't Nazi or because I was harbouring racist views or anything like that, but just because I was like beginning to think, hang on, that's not quite right. And then people tell me a problem because I'm questioning it. Or disagreeing with a part of their point. Basically, I was watching a documentary the other day, which was really fantastic. It was called Unexpected Courtesy, or Accidental Courtesy, sorry. I don't know if you've seen it. It's about a guy called Daryl Davis.
I've listened to a podcast with him, actually. He's the one who went around and tried to convert Klansmen.
That's
right?
it, yeah. And I was watching it, and I was like, what an absolute legend this guy is. Like, he goes into these really dangerous situations with a level head, obviously, because because these issues are so emotional and people have got such, they've got such clear views and such passionate views about these things, right? To go in with a clear head and actually have a discussion without shouting, without, and just pressing your points across, having that mutual respect. The thing is, right, if you no platform someone, if you say you're a racist, so I'm not going to give you a platform, that's fair enough. If they're spewing hatred, people don't have to listen to it because it's stupid anyway. But if you turn around and you say you're not having a platform because I disagree with you, that'll sort of ostracize them and drive them towards the more radical viewpoints. That's why you need to have that sort of dialogue between the two and be like, I don't agree with what you're saying, but I'm glad that we could have this conversation where I can get my point across and you can get your point across. I think the way that politics is becoming, especially in the UK and America at the moment, where it's us and them and it's so split down the middle, is setting a dangerous precedent. Definitely. And don't get me wrong, this guy Darryl Davis, he sat with a couple of people from Black Lives Matter, and they absolutely hounded him, saying that he was part of the problem and things like that. But if you look at it deep down, he's helping. Like the more people that leave the clan because of him, the less powerful the clan is, and the smaller it becomes, and the less of a thing it becomes. Do you know what I mean? It's this short-sightedness and this. Or if you're talking to clansmen, you're part of the clan and you're the problem. Get out of here, stupid man.
It's one of those things with conversations, and that's why I love this podcast. Is I've had my mind changed on lots of different things by conversation. It's quite rare that I have an opinion on something and then I research it myself and then I find evidence that will change my own view on it. What normally happens more so is I'll have a conversation with someone. A good example is one I've used in this podcast quite a lot. It was around episode 20, 30, 40. I had my mate Dom on, and Dom he's more on the political right. He's like right of centre, I'd say, and I'd say I'm left of centre. And me and him don't agree on everything, but I really respect him. He's a really, really sound guy, and he knows what he's fucking talking about. He's one of the most intelligent persons when it comes to political literacy that I know. It's probably him and probably my friend Josh, who's been on the podcast a few times, but Josh is much more on the left and Dom's more on the right. And me and Dom were having a discussion about handguns and things and open carry and things, because I was talking about, and I was like, I just don't understand how America does it. Why don't they just do this? And I think I said something like, I was like, why don't they just get rid of everything that isn't a handgun? And that was my viewpoint for quite a long time. And then I spoke with Dom, and he knows, he's got family in America and stuff, and he's handled guns and that sort of stuff. And he said, well, the problem is with that is that if you get, say, a shotgun or a hunting rifle or something, it's so hard to hide that even if you get one out, it's very obvious quite quickly that what you're doing. And that doesn't make it okay, but it means if a situation goes bad, it's quite obvious. If you have a handgun, you can conceal 4 handguns very, very easily, without really having to worry about anything. You have a holster on either side of your hips and then ankle ones, or if you wear a coat, you can have 2 on the inside pocket, 2 on the outside pockets, easy. And his discussion with me made me reconsider my stance on guns. I looked into a few more things and stuff, and now I have a bit more of a, unfortunately, complicated look on guns and things, which is a conversation for another time. Yeah, but the value of changing a mind is so underappreciated. People are so, as you say, they're so indoctrinated on the left or the right or whatever, and all they do is they wait for the other person to stop talking just so they can yell their point at them, rather than actually waiting, thinking, listening, and going, okay, well, you said that, now why is that? No, I don't fully agree with that because of this, but why do you? They don't have conversations like that. They go, no, you're fucking wrong, fuck you, how dare you have that? And it's like, why? How are you ever going to get common ground if you're attacking someone?
As I say, I'm not going to get too much into into this little worldview that I've spun for myself, but it's literally the art of war. Sun Tzu: keep the populace divided, so us at the top, we can do what we like, and they won't say anything about it. Make them fight each other, so we can just do what we want, and that's it. That's how capitalism works. I read an awesome book which I will show you here. It's called Capitalist Realism by a man called Mark Fisher. And basically, he just explains how capitalism is affecting our lives and how bad it essentially is for people's mental health. But people suffer under capitalism; it's very exploitative. But there's no alternative. What is the like? He says in the book, he's like, this is a really awful thing, but I can't tell you what the alternative is. I don't know. No one knows. Like, say for example, everyone rose up a revolution, took capitalism out, and we were like, right, we're not doing that anymore. What are we going to do? Everyone would be like, oh, I don't know. Because you don't know.
No, it's basically capitalism or communism, and every show of communism has failed exponentially worse than any attempt at capitalism has by so far. It's like,
yeah, absolutely
silly.
Don't get me wrong. I'm not a communist. I don't know enough about communism to say it's bad, it's good. I had read a bit of Chomsky, and I'd argue that a lot of the states that say they were communist weren't really communists. Like, if you look at China, they say that they're a communist state. They are absolutely not. There's so much exploitation from those at the top in China. It's stupid. But, like, yeah, I don't think that would work either. There needs to be a sort of middle ground. But what is that middle ground? No one knows. Who knows? I don't. Yeah, I certainly don't.
I think it's probably, what's it called? It's like, things like capitalist socialism or something like that. But my kind of vague view, I'll just say it's just like, I believe capitalism is the best way to live life, as you say. I think it's not I think there's a lot of shit to it, but the alternatives are slim to none. But I think that with something that, if you work hard and you get benefit and you get, props to that, you work hard, generally you get paid more. That should be how it works. But also should be the case of, if you're born with some sort of horrendous disease, you shouldn't suffer for your entire life financially just because you were born with something. And that's kind of where my view lies.
Yeah.
However, I was going to say, is there anything you want to add? Otherwise I was going to change gear.
I was about to suggest changing gear as well, to be honest, because I think that, as I say, I think we're both quite articulate, and I think that we both have a lot to say, and we'd be here forever otherwise. So yeah, but yeah, well, it is what it is, isn't it? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that I wasn't dogging on Black Lives Matter at all. I think it is wholly a good organisation that fights for a good cause. I think that the media hijack it a lot. I think that there are some individuals that are using it to a different end. But yeah, it's wholly a good organisation. I was thinking people are going to think that I guess I'm not.
No, I think people can tell that we're trying. We're not, like most opinions I have. There's few opinions I hold that are like unchangeable, but most of those are just normal things, like don't rape. It's like, but that doesn't make me a good person for thinking that. There's a lot of things I feel like people should have as like a baseline, which is what
absolutely.
A lot of it is. Like, I'm not. Yeah, I'm such a good guy because I believe rape's bad. It's like, no, everyone should fucking believe rape's bad. That doesn't make you a good person. It's things like that. But
it's not a funny subject. I don't know why I laughed then, but it's just the way you said it, yeah.
I know, I try to make jest of it. But I want to ask you, Sean, actually, about travelling. And that's the end of the podcast. Thanks as always for tuning in, guys. As I said in the intro, I do actually have more conversation with Sean, as obviously the way I kind of ended it there was a little cliffhangery thing of what's going to go on next, where obviously I've written in the description and things, and I'm telling you now. We speak about Sean travelling quite a bit. We speak a little bit more about Wales and England and stuff, and we also spoke about food quite a bit. So it's that sort of general idea. Travelling and food is what the next podcast is about, but I'm keeping them separate because the subject matter does change so sort of abruptly in a sense. So we just thought, yeah, we'll swap into two. In the coming weeks, I have got a podcast recorded and ready to go with Janine Mercer, who has been on the show before. We had a great lot of fun chatting and things. That'll be a two-parter. Still got the GCSE one saved and locked away, which I won't be releasing till probably August. I've got a chat with someone next week as well, who's also got a podcast and things. My mate Alex came down a couple of days ago, and he's the one who's been spoken about in this chat specifically with Sean. He's been on the show countless times as well, and he asked me if he could come on the show again, just to have a chat and a catch up essentially. So he'll be on the show again soon. So, returning guests aplenty, and also I have got other people in the pipeline planned for future episodes and things, which will be out at some point. I am going on holiday the first 2 weeks of August. I say holiday, I'm not going abroad, I'm just travelling around England due to a lot of COVID restrictions and things. I was already planning on doing a trip around Europe and stuff, so I wasn't going to be able to release podcasts then, so it's unlikely there will be podcasts at that time. I am tempted to just take a mic and me and Megan can record vaguely what we're kind of doing, or maybe I'll just use my phone and it'll be lower quality and things, but it might be a bit of fun. So if you guys would be interested in that, please let me know. If you're not, then also please tell me, because I won't waste my time doing it. But if any of you guys would be up for hearing me and Megan get up to on our sort of 2 weeks of travelling, we're going to go to Liverpool and the Lake District. We're going to go to a few castles here and there. We're going to go to Stratford-upon-Avon. There's a few different places in England that we're kind of travelling to. So we're going to have some fun in that regard. And there's a place I'm going where I'm hoping I might be able to get another podcast guest, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But yeah, if that sounds like something you guys would be interested in, let me know, and I may get that sorted. Otherwise, I may just end up taking a break because I don't want to take all my podcasting equipment with me when I go away and then, have to spend ages doing it. It may only really be 1 week that I don't do it, so I don't know. Maybe I won't do it for the week, and then we'll do an episode. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think, and we'll kind of figure it out from there. I also said that I've got Scott Weatherly of the 20th Century Geek. We've got a podcast scheduled for some point in the next couple of weeks. He was the person who you heard in the intro regarding the promo. That is more or less it from me, guys. I'm just going to say a little bit about my other podcast. My other podcast stars Comics in Canon. It is on the feed of Comics in Motion. Episodes are released generally every Saturday. The most recent episode was the second volume in the Darth Vader comics. The Vader comics are set shortly after events of A New Hope and before episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. Because there's a 3-year gap between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, and a lot happens in that time. It gets explored in the Darth Vader comics as well as the main run of Star Wars comics, which I am now doing in a way that they are trying to be parallel timeline-wise. And also I've done episodes recently of Mace Windu. He has a mini-series and speaks about his master, a bit more information about him. I've got the one coming up next week, which is one of the Lando comics that exists. Well, one of the Lando mini-series that exists. There's one which is the one I'm about to read, which I think is set before A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. And then there's the other one, which is Lando Double or Nothing, which is featuring a much more young Lando, which is set before the events of Solo. So it's almost like the Billy D. Williams Lando is the one I'm going to be doing soon, and the Donald Glover Lando is one I'm going to be doing at some point in the future. But thought I'd throw that out there. If any of you guys are interested in Star Wars, please check it out. If you're not that interested in Star Wars, don't worry about it. But if you watch the films and you enjoy it, but you're not that fast on reading loads of books and comics and this, that and the other to get more information, it's a good way because the episodes are normally between 25 and 45 minutes of just me talking about general narrative that happens in the plot of some of the comics, how it connects to the wider canon, the movies, the TV series, that sort of thing. I don't spoil the things apart from what I'm talking about. Every comic I speak about, I will talk about the narrative within that. So it is a spoiler of that comic in a sense. But I don't go into ridiculous depth. I don't read out everything verbatim. I don't really describe the action scenes. I'm more speaking about it from a lore perspective and how the story gets moved on. I read out a few excerpts of things that I think are really cool. And as I said, when certain species or planets come up, I give a bit more information about them just so you kind of have a vague understanding of the wider canon and what's really been going on. So if that sounds like something that interests you, check out the feed of Comics in Motion. As I said, it's called Star Wars Comics in Canon. Episodes are out on Saturdays. You can listen to it basically anywhere you're listening to this except for YouTube. So if you go on to Spotify, Apple or Google Podcasts, Stitcher, anywhere like that, you can find Comics in Motion, and by finding that you will find Star Wars Comics in Canon. Yeah. So appreciate that, guys. Anyone who's listening, especially this far to the end, I incredibly appreciate you. If you can share the show, speak to it with people you know, share by word of mouth, social media, all that sort of jazz, I really appreciate it. And, subscribing really helps the show as well as reviewing on iTunes. So really hope everyone's doing well in the sort of coming to the end of the first phase of the lockdown and the COVID pandemic. Hopefully it will be the only wave of it, and then hopefully things will slowly simmer down and then we can go back to, in air quotes, normal soon enough. But obviously things don't always work out that way. But I'm not going to delve on that. I'm not going to dwell. Stay safe, guys. I hope you're all doing well. If you need anything, please contact me on social media or via email at genuinechitchat@outlook.com. And yeah, we'll go from there. Anyway, guys, stay safe and I'll talk to you next week.